There is so much money focused on commercial real estate in the Vegas Valley that it's kind of mind-blowing. It's kind of mind-boggling.
This is Las Vegas Real Estate Now with local real estate expert Harvey Blankfeld.
Now, on your last show, I talked about the Raider effect. Not necessarily the Raiders per se, but the money that followed the Raiders, the legitimacy that followed the NFL.
Right.
That has only gotten bigger and bigger since I was on your show. The money that is coming into this valley is unlike anything those of us that are practicing in commercial real estate have seen in the past. And so while your viewers may reflect on the fact that residential real estate is a little stagnant, a little sideways right now, I can tell you in commercial that is simply not the case.
Interesting.
Across the valley. There are some segments that are stronger than other segments.
Right.
We'll focus on those in a minute. But generally speaking, the money that is coming in for development, so, not to build a building, to build an entire neighborhood, to build an entire block. Just a massive amounts of money coming in and ideas that are just wonderful to see coming to the Vegas Valley. So it's a very exciting time in real estate.
Will it make us a little more diverse economically here? Does this create more diversity for us as well?
I think it has to.
Right?
Yeah, and I think the statistics are that tourism, entertainment are sliding a little bit as our overall GDP, but certainly I think we're starting to see manufacturing return to the Vegas Valley in a major way. And by the way, that extends over into Pahrump as well. That extends over into Mesquite. We're seeing just a general focus on the Southern Nevada market that I've never experienced before. It's
that's exciting.
Yeah, it gets really exciting.
That's going to help us in residential eventually. I mean, eventually we'll see the impact on residential, obviously. So if we've got more people coming here for work, and that's going to help us out quite a bit.
I agree.
Okay. So let's talk about the segments then. Let's get into that. Which one do you want to touch on first, Jeff?
Let's go ahead and start with office.
Okay. So when we had the pandemic, there was this thought that everyone's going to work from home now. And offices are going to be obsolete. Just not the case, right, Jeff?
Not the case, yeah.
Not at all.
It's a pendulum like everything. It swung a little to one direction. It's come back now. I would say it's kind of back to center, but there sure appears to be some momentum carrying to more office. Because I think the reality is corporate America realized something they probably instinctively already knew, and that is we have better synergies when we see each other face to face and we're around each other. More gets done, more motivation.
Let's talk about industrial. What's happening out there in the industrial segment of our commercial real estate?
I think industrial is so fun to talk about. There's such a convergence in this moment in time of factors influencing industrial. It's really quite interesting, and I want to try to break this down as best I can. And I'm going to put some things in context. When we back up a few years, we can all agree that industrial has boomed in the Vegas Valley. It's a combination of someone figuring out that it's a great distribution market. You can reach 10 major metropolitans in 10 hours in a truck from Vegas. So a whole lot of distribution occurring and a lot of demand, manufacturing returning to the Vegas Valley. But here's the problem. There was so much demand. We have so little industrial zone land in the Vegas Valley. We have some, but we don't have like a lot of other cities do. We've got a limited supply. Now you get all this sudden interest and demand. What happens naturally? Land prices go up. The cost to build industrial in the Vegas Valley has gone up considerably over the last decade. So we're seeing all this demand. We're seeing build costs rise. And then we saw something really interesting occur out of COVID and into, again, what I'm going to say was a slight recession. And that was a whole lot of developers, big developers, came in and built 100,000 square foot plus distribution centers, warehouses, And right as the market dried up for that kind of stuff. And the reason developers are building big box stuff instead of smaller stuff is the land cost. You can't buy the land and construct a 10,000 square foot concrete tilt up and make money on it today in the Vegas Valley like you could a decade ago. So they're going to the big box stuff, and that became overbuilt. A huge amount of supply, not enough demand. And we've seen 9 consecutive quarters of rising vacancy rates in the industrial market. 9 consecutive quarters
over
of
2
rising
years.
And so we're seeing that occur, right? And now here's the good news. So if you look at the data through the second quarter of 2025, it was not good. Land costs up, build costs up, no demand or less demand, I shouldn't say no demand, and things were looking a little challenging. Good news, the third quarter turned.
Oh,
okay. So in the third quarter, we started to see a couple of those big boxes get sold. We started to see them reduce their lease rates down to where they could, really drive folks to, and again, back to same thing with office. I'd rather, if I'm going to spend $1.40 a square foot, I'd rather be in the Southwest in a brand new building with 28-foot ceilings than in off of Lamb in North Las Vegas in a building that's 25 years old with 16-foot ceilings, right?
Gotcha.
So we saw, again, a little bit of compression on the lease rates at the bigger buildings, and we're starting to see that change now. We're starting to see lease rates go up. Starting to see some improvement in industrial. It's very encouraging. We have a little bit of a ways to go. Now, I'd like to also share some data with you that I find very interesting. I was preparing for this conversation today, and I was doing a little bit of research on industrial, and I want to share something interesting. When we look at industrial building sales, now I'm going to focus bigger box stuff, 100,000 square foot type stuff and bigger, and we look in North Las Vegas, we look in Southeast Henderson, that stuff is selling on average for around 215 to 230, 40 a square foot. We have several recent sales in the Southwest, which is the hot industrial market off of 215 everyone wants to be in, at 315 a square foot.
Whoa.
100 more a square foot.
Holy cow.
Because of location.
Yeah.
Think about that, right?
That's crazy.
Now, I'd make an argument it's more than location. I'd make an argument it's employee housing around, housing around is much nicer than some of those other areas of the valley. Transportation's easier, crime is lower, the retail offering is greater. So there's a lot of things, but 100 a square foot difference. Woo! Just wanted to point that out to your listeners today. I find that information surprising.
I'd like to talk a little bit about retail now. What's going on in retail? What's happening in retail in our valley these days?
Retail is so fascinating. I get excited to talk industrial in the last segment, but retail is just so interesting. At the end of the day, we don't have enough retail in the valley to support where the growth is.
Really?
Let me just say this right now. When we finished up the second quarter of 2025, retail vacancy rate was hovering at around 5%.
Wow.
Can you imagine? 5%.
Wow.
And so we've got a lot of demand for retail. We've got Vegas is on the map from a retail standpoint.
Right.
And it starts on the Strip with the big names, but what we're seeing more and more is the big names coming off the Strip and coming into the housing, the valley, the area. There's Vegas isn't $5 buffets and cheap hotel rooms anymore. There's a lot
Unfortunately
of wealth
not,
in Vegas. And so let's talk about retail. What we're seeing again in retail is we're seeing retail, as you mentioned earlier, go out to the Beltway. More and more.
Yeah, keeps getting further and further. We're closer to the mountains.
And we're actually seeing retail lease rates in certain areas now well above $5 a square foot, Harvey. Retail rates that would have been $3, $3.50 5 years ago are now exceeding $5. And I have bad news for if you're thinking about leasing retail. My comment would be get it now, because if you wait 5-10 years, it's going to look more and more like LA retail pricing.
Wow.
It's just gotten crazy. Shout out specifically to restaurants within the retail segment. If you're thinking about opening a restaurant in the Vegas Valley and you want second-gen restaurant space, meaning there was a restaurant there previously, that stuff is so hard to find. It is, at any given time, if we have 20 restaurant sites in the valley available,
really?
I'm thrilled.
That's it.
Yeah, I'm probably getting that number wrong. It's probably more than that.
Right.
But I'm talking about legit.
Yeah,
like you actually could run a restaurant there. There are properties on the market that call themselves a restaurant space that aren't really, like they have grease trap.
Right. They already have the infrastructure for a restaurant. They have the hoods, they have the grease traps, all that stuff built in.
Yep.
Okay.
But we have an awful lot more restaurateurs looking for space than we have available in the Vegas Valley.
Interesting.
So it's very, very interesting to watch retail right now. Smaller retail space. Think 1,200 to 2,000 square feet, getting harder and harder to find.
Really?
There's not a lot of it out there. It just makes sense if you think about it. If you've got a shopping center and you're leasing out retail space, you'd prefer to lease bigger spaces.
Of course.
So we don't see a lot of the small stuff. Why do I mention that? It's getting harder and harder for mom and pop to compete in corporate retail.
Okay, so the last segment of commercial we want to talk about is multifamily.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because I dabble in it. Just barely dabble in it. But tell me what's going on with multifamily right these days.
At the end of the day, we mentioned earlier in an earlier segment that Vegas is not the affordable place that many of us remember. I get calls every once in a while. I'm sure you do as well. I'll get it from someone in, I don't know, I'm just going to say Oklahoma. It doesn't mean that's where the call came from.
Right.
And, hey, I want to buy some of that cheap land in Vegas. And I always chuckle at that and think to myself, well, you missed that by about 20 years.
Yeah, a couple decades.
You missed it. So Vegas has gotten expensive and housing has followed. We simply don't have enough land for the demand. The estimates are that the Bureau of Land Management will run out of land for the Vegas Valley in approximately 7 years.
Wow.
We'll then move to infill.
Yeah.
Think of any major city. LA is a great example.
Right.
We'll move to infill, then we'll go to mid-rise, then we'll go to vertical, and land just keeps going up and up and up in value. And multifamily is interesting. When you think about it that way, in that context, multifamily is going to become what people can afford for a much larger percentage of our population than we have now. We are not moving in the direction of more single-family homes in the Vegas Valley, because we're spending $800,000 to $1 million an acre now to buy land in the Vegas Valley. It's not $250,000 an acre anymore here. And so again, back to the cost per door, it just makes a lot more sense for developers to build multifamily, and we're seeing that across the Vegas Valley. We delivered 3,418 new multifamily units in the first half of 2025.
Okay.
Absorption was incredible. Those got sucked up and leased out.
There's demand.
Sold.
We know that. Yep.
And so as we see more and more people moving to the Vegas Valley, we see land costs getting quite high. We're going to see a natural movement towards more and more multifamily, and I think that presents a lot of opportunity for developers and builders. And we're seeing it, Harvey. You're seeing it. You take some of the major national builders, they're moving away from the McMansions and more to the zero lot lines on single family, smaller lots, and then ultimately to townhomes and condos.